There seems to be an upcoming announcement that could very well happen on July 7th when it comes to Near. And I didn't make this up, it's not something I discovered myself. Near literally made a post about this not too long ago. They said for business, but then below that they put July 7th. What could it be? Now, only time will tell, but if anything, it seems like they're planning to announce something that's pretty massive. So I'll get into that in today's video, even though nothing I say is financial advice, and even though I'll talk about the price of Near later. However, if we take a look at this right here, this seems pretty impressive because people like to say, well, Near, they're just hyping up July 7th just for the sake of it. They're not really going to do anything. But I kind of disagree with that because Near does not have a history of doing pranks, in my opinion. Some other projects out there do that, but they don't do that. If they're planning for something on July 7th, they typically are planning for something for that date. This could hypothetically be, let's say, a partnership, a new integration, maybe a new collaboration, or maybe a new product launch. I mean, historically, we've seen something like Near Intense. That's done pretty well. Or should I say very well? Take a look at Near Intense. The volume so far, right, has been over $20 billion. So if we think about something like Near, if they've done so well with Near Intense, July 7th could maybe, I think, let's say, be something that they consider to be a big deal because they're talking about it in advance and they're kind of hyping it up. What could it be? Only time will tell. But again, usually when they're this excited about a date, it usually means something. So when people like to say, oh, Near's not planning anything, I think they are. Typically, these projects, when they do things, they usually do it behind the scenes. They're not typically announcing every single day that, oh, yeah, we're doing this behind the scenes and all this. They typically wait until it's kind of nearing the final stages and then they start taking a look at, let's say, a launch date and announcing that, hey, we're going to be launching something. But usually they're still doing things behind the scenes. So when people like to say, oh, Near checked out, like it became lazy after Near Intense became successful, but that's seemingly not the case. They're still building and they're still thriving. We have to consider, okay, it's at around $2 as of right now, but it doesn't change the fact that Near Intense is doing very amazing. The adoption is pretty fantastic. And also on top of that, it doesn't change the fact that they're planning for something on July 7th. Now, the fact that they say for business, it could very well indicate maybe a hypothetical partnership with a large enterprise. That wouldn't surprise me whatsoever because I think Near has an amazing infrastructure. Like, for instance, the Near protocol, it's historically known for its aspect of sharding technology. Now, it's not the only one out there that has an aspect of that, but through sharding, the network is split into multiple sections known as shards, and as a result, workload on the network is distributed amongst these different shards, and because of that, Near becomes very scalable. Now, something like Zilliqa, something like Harmony, it does have an aspect of sharding technology as well, but when it comes to Near, that has been kind of a unique thing about it historically. And if we think about it, Near is just kind of getting started when it comes to AI, right? We know of this focus when it comes to AI in regard to Near, and we take a look at it. Near, allegedly, the last time I checked, still makes up the largest percentage in Grayscale's decentralized AI fund. Again, the largest percentage in Grayscale's decentralized AI fund. That's so legendary. So when people like to say, oh, Near is just around $2, yeah, that's true. But fundamentally, I think it's doing so fantastic. Personally, for me, I'm not telling anyone to do anything though. But here's the thing. Is being at $2 really that bad? Personally, for me, I don't think about it that way because if I just take a look at Near back in December of 2024, Near was at $7.40 approximately. Keep in mind, we're almost 4 times lower than that. We're over 3 times lower than that, but we're almost 4 times lower than that as of right now. Now, that may seem like a bad thing at first glance, but keep in mind, I don't mind the dip. For me, if I'm looking to dollar cost average, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything, I don't like it if a project is really expensive for the hypothetical purpose for dollar cost averaging. Now, I'll never be able to know the exact bottom, there's just no way. But on the flip side as well, Near's at around $2. Keep in mind, these are levels that we saw back in 2021. Like, I mean, this is like a really long time ago. We saw these levels, right? And Near is literally back at that level again. As a matter of fact, that was like Near at early 2021 levels when it was at around $2. So that's how much Near is at a pullback. It's basically at levels we once saw over 5 years ago, which again doesn't seem like a bad thing to me, because if I'm able to dollar cost average into a project which I feel has improved by a whole lot, take a look at Near Intense and take a look at the emphasis that Near has when it comes to AI, and yet it's back at levels that it once was in 2021, I have zero complaints. That's just my perspective, though. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. But on the flip side as well, Near, the fact that it was able to have that amazing pivot towards AI is so legendary, because typically projects out there, they don't succeed at that. Near, historically, it wasn't like it was really known for AI. When I first believed in Near, there was really no big AI narrative at all when it comes to this. But now it does. So could you imagine that? Near had the foresight, it had the intent to really shift its focus so much towards AI, to the point that Grayscale even looked into this. I'm not joking. Again, Grayscale's decentralized AI fund, Near makes up the largest percentage in that fund. It even overtakes something like BitTensor's native token called Tau. Let's just let that sink in for a second. BitTensor is really focused on AI, and yet Near, the percentage is just higher than that in Grayscale's decentralized AI fund. Now, people like to say, well, what does Near know about being focused on AI? Well, my thing is, what does BitTensor know? The thing is, a lot of these projects, they're focused on AI, but people like to say, oh, this project doesn't know, this project knows. Well, what do they mean? Like, how do they determine whether or not this project knows or not? Being focused on AI is a relatively new thing anyways for a lot of projects. So it's not like one can be focused on it and the other one can't. I don't agree with that. But the difference between Near and some other projects out there is that it actually has the fundamentals to support that sort of pivot towards AI. Some other projects out there don't really have that, but Near, because again, we take a look at the Near protocol and aspect of sharding technology, being focused on AI gave it a lot of direction, in my opinion, because initially Near, it was just kind of competing more or less with a Solana, a Cardano, which I think it still is, but there was really no specialization for quite a while. But that AI narrative really gave Near a lot of purpose, in my opinion. And the fact that Near now has Near Intense and all this, it just gave Near a clearer and more, I guess, purposeful direction. So Near was a classic case of a project that really knew where to pivot and allocate their resources properly, because they really shifted their focus in regard to AI and also Near Intense. So that was pretty surprising. A lot of other projects out there, they never are able to do that type of stuff, but we do see it when it comes to Near. And again, if anything, I'll never be able to know when the market could recover. There's just no way. But one thing I do know, though, is that I'm still waiting, I'm still holding, and I'm still dollar cost averaging once every approximately 30 days. That's really about it. However, again, I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but just seeing Near give a clue, or a hint, I should say, as to something that they're going to be announcing on July 7th, that's pretty exciting. At least personally for me. I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but again, I'm a little bit curious because it's just days away at this point. But yeah, I'll be sure to make an updated video as to what that announcement could be, and hopefully y'all stay tuned for that. I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a very fantastic day. It's only the Captain. I'm out. Peace. Bye.